Hello everyone and welcome to the IFST Food Safety Group webinar on remote auditing. My name is Andy Kerridge. I'm the Vice Chair of the IFST Food Safety Special Interest Group. The group has a broad scope covering all areas relating to safety, including chemical, microbiological and physical contaminants as well as allergens. It also considers topics such as analytical techniques, food safety culture and food fraud prevention, and contributes to relevant publication. It provides members interested in food safety with an opportunity to engage and share knowledge. The COVID-19 pandemic brought a halt to audits of manufacturing sites, distribution centres, farms, etc. After some initial confusion, there came acceptance of remote auditing, firstly as a stopgap measure, and then recognition that remote access or remote monitoring can offer substantial opportunities. We will hear from two speakers involved with such remote monitoring and auditing and their experiences in practice. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared on the IFST's website. Please feel free to make comments and ask questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A function, which should be at the bottom of your screen. As I mentioned, there will be a Q&A session after the presentation where we will respond to as many of these questions as possible. Natasha Medhurst, IFST's Scientific Affairs Manager, will ask the speakers your questions. Our speakers today are Clare Rapa-Marley and Suzanne Estévez. Clare is the Head of Standards and Audits at Tesco and has led the Standards and Audit function for the past 5 years. Accountabilities include supplier audit programs, manufacturing standards, and associated policies and requirements for all globally sourced products. Suzanne has been with NSF International for 16 years. She is currently Vice President Technical Support for UK and Europe for the EyeSucceed programme. Before joining EyeSucceed full-time, she worked in the field operations for NSF's Agricultural Division, managed NSF retail client training programmes and directed support systems operations and marketing for the business development team. EyeSucceed is a subsidiary of NSF International and is a food service industry augmented intelligence company dedicated to elevating clients' back-of-house operations. For more information on their biographies, please look on the IFST's website. So without further ado, I will hand over to our first speaker, Clare. Thank you.
Andy, thank you for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. In my presentation today, I will take you through why an approach to remote, a look at the software and security, and the trials we performed at Tesco with results. We use a blend of approaches to evaluating our supply-based technical performance. By far the largest approach by time is having a physical presence within the supply base through site audits and visits. This is also the most traditional model used across GFSI auditing schemes and throughout the industry of suppliers upstream. As an industry, we're also heavily reliant on data for ongoing evaluation, using key performance indicators or scorecards to measure compliance or performance. This is an area of significant technological development, with big data, linked platforms showing dashboards, trends and patterns in data, huge opportunity in predictive analytics. And of course, the industry is linking through online groups and forums. However, for today's discussion, I'll focus on possibly the newest area of opportunity and potentially the least used, and that is remote monitoring. Of course, many businesses have technology with CCTV, for example, which can allow observers to remotely see into parts of their business. But as a retailer, it was our greatest area of opportunity and least used. But last year, we identified the ideal scenario blended both remote and physical presence monitoring, with ongoing data and KPIs to manage supply-based risk in real time. I'm going to talk to you about the Tesco approach to remote auditing and remote visits. The term remote audit is not a new one, but in my observation over the past year, there has become a spectrum of definitions pertaining to the phrase remote audit or desktop audit. So let's explore these phrases and technologies being used. There are many options for document sharing between auditor and auditee. These can be via secure cloud-based OneDrives or bespoke software that can be purchased, and they're often good, secure systems for easily sharing records, procedures, documentation about the manufacture of a product. These desktop exercises, however, tend to be limited to document reviews or system compliance or traceability exercises, so really a desktop audit delivered remotely. There are options for live streaming using advances like WhatsApp or Microsoft Teams, which are great for calls and meetings and also with ability to record the call or meeting. Video recording and photography are of course not new, but how does an auditor know that these videos and photographs are being taken at the factory they're actually auditing? They're also not always taken in real time. But what about augmented reality technology and the digital enhancements with mixed and virtual reality? Is it really possible to replicate a physical presence audit remotely? Is it possible to do all that I've just described in a secure, real-time way and be fairly confident that the findings tell us as much about a factory as if we were really there? Well, this is exactly what we've done at Tesco, with help from experts across different industries outside of food, outside of factories, and outside of manufacturing. Before I discuss the Tesco approach, let's explore the benefits and concerns of a remote audit programme. Benefits include reduced travel, which can support your sustainability goals, time saving, cost saving, improved efficiency, mitigates personnel risk from travelling to hazardous or remote locations, provides opportunity to evaluate sites under lockdown or if there's a lack of local in-country auditors, particularly this year where COVID-19 has seen international borders closed and factories restricting visitors to their facilities. It gives greater protection of brand reputation through speed and visibility of getting to sites. It allows us to record real-life situations for future training purposes or due diligence recording. It allows for a more on-demand site review, not just a fixed audit day or fixed duration, and can reduce the disturbance of site personnel with the auditor not being present. But concerns for a remote programme. It's not a full replacement for a physical presence auditing programme. There's limited visibility on site. You could arguably only see what the site wants you to see. There's no full sensory and peripheral experience. For live streaming in particular, you need Wi-Fi or network connection, and there are parts of factories, for example, inside fridges or at remote locations where you don't always have that connectivity. There's a limited ability to build a relationship and have interaction with personnel on site. And there's also some nervousness from the site with regards to GDPR and confidentiality. So let's now look at the Tesco solution for remote auditing. We've purchased software that's installed onto the auditor's laptop, enabling them an augmented reality interactive experience of the factory that they're auditing. They have two screens, one that's connected to the site, which I'll come on to explain, and one that captures any images and recordings. Meanwhile, at the site, they download the app for free onto a smartphone or tablet, and using the app accepts the incoming call from the remote auditor. So they can now be connected over mobile or Wi-Fi. The call acceptance connects the auditor's laptop to the camera, allowing the auditor to operate the camera, and the factory rep effectively acts as a drone, guided around the site by the auditor. The functionality of the software allows the auditor to take on all the camera controls, including zoom, torch operation, illustration on the screen, and also document sharing. The remote auditor may live stream, capture images or video, all in a transparent way with the site permission. The camera also shares its GPS location, so we know we are where they say we are. The software is in compliance with the GDPR regulation and the Data Protection Act 2018. It is certified ISO 27001 and 27018, which is accredited by a third-party independent audit, and it's also encryption and penetration tested. Behind the scenes, as audit program managers, the software also allows us a dashboard of activity for us to monitor the auditor's performance, such as the time they've spent live streaming in the factory. During spring of this year, we undertook a significant trial using this technology, testing it with dozens of different countries, Tesco colleagues and auditors. We're now using the technology not only for approval and ongoing maintenance audits, but also for social distancing reviews, working with international colleagues, quality and packaging reviews, pre-approval audits, product and depot inspections, first and pre-productions, whistleblower investigations, and hygiene inspections, to name a few. So our trials demonstrated that using augmented reality, it's possible, as best as current technology allows, and with the right level of Wi-Fi and mobile connectivity on site, to replicate a physical presence audit remotely. But not only for audit, for all other sorts of remote monitoring purposes. Here's a small selection of photographs taken during remote audits. You can see here a close product inspection. I've covered the GPS coordinates of where the Apple photo was taken, but the aerial shot below shows the packing facility. The pink lines on the box demonstrate the ability to illustrate, and those dirty shoes were spotted at some distance across the factory floor using a zoom feature. I'll now play you an example of a video recording.
Fantastic, thank you, Sarah. The image quality on those rocket lollies is fantastic. The layering you've got is really good in the factory at the moment. And then if you just lower it down slightly, we can see the sticks coming round on the belt as well, and how clean that is. Really clean area as well. And we can see someone smiling through the middle there. Sarah, would it be possible just to look at them executing the line?
Yes.
I think the image quality is quite good, Sarah, so if you could just pull the camera back slightly, I think we might get a clearer view. Brilliant, thank you. And then if we could just look towards packing. Oh, wow. Yeah. And where does the date code go on, Sarah?
Sorry?
And where's the product getting coded?
The product's getting coded. I'll go around the side. Well,
Oh no, don't worry, carry on.
Coding.
Sarah, that's fine, carry along.
Are you sure? I can probably
No, that's fine. Graham just asked, could you lift a box off the line for us to look at, please?
Yeah, just done it.
That's fantastic. Everyone can see that? Yeah, I'm just going to take a picture of that, Sarah Winter, if you just bear with me 2 seconds.
Yep.
So Sarah, I have the ability to take a picture, which is what I've just done, but also on your phone you can choose to take a picture.
Oh, hey, okay.
So we've got a picture now, which I'm just going to share with the team. And you should be able to see it on your phone as well now, Sarah.
Oh, yes, I can. Yeah, that's great.
Super. Thank you.
I hope you found that interesting and useful. Thank you for listening. I will now hand over to Suzanne.
Thank you, Claire. Hi, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to join this webinar. As Andy mentioned, I'm Suzanne Estévez from EyeSucceed. For anyone who's not familiar with us, EyeSucceed is the only food industry company focused on enterprise augmented reality solutions delivered through smart glass technology. We've officially partnered with Google, who's named us as a licensed glass solution provider. and we're the only ones who are specialising in the food industry. We offer next-generation interactive solutions to help our clients in the areas of auditing, remote assistance, training and management operations. EyeSucceed is a subsidiary of the public health and safety organisation NSF International. So, the pandemic, COVID-19, coronavirus, quarantine, self-isolation. These words have brought a completely new way to conduct our day-to-day lives. In the food industry alone, we've seen closures of restaurants, reduction in staff, and a troubled supply chain. I know this phrase is already cliche, but the new normal has already revealed that we'll never return to the way we operated before all of this. At the same time, the competitive environment surrounding digital innovation in the food industry has been incredibly active. Before COVID-19 appeared, we were already rethinking business as usual and facilitating remote assistance. Why? Well, for several reasons. Travel time. So, regardless of the mode of travel, visiting a site has always meant time spent in transit. While we can sometimes sneak in a catch up on emails or a quick phone call, there is only so much one can do when travelling to an audit. In some cases, I've heard of auditors travelling for a whole day to conduct a 2-hour audit and then of course having to travel the whole day back. And now with local and corporate travel restrictions in place, not to mention safeguarding our employees' personal health, travel is even more problematic. And then of course there are travel costs, trains, mileage, accommodation, meals. Some international travel can cost more than the audit itself. There are also limited resources. Sometimes we don't have the time or the people to cover everything that's going on, and sometimes an audit requires a specialist who's only available for a short window of time. Then of course there's the carbon footprint. Most companies these days have been set the task of reducing their global carbon footprint, yet we're still using planes and cars to arrive in person. Obviously, there are more efficient and productive ways to get the job done. We dealt with a significant case that highlighted just how beneficial remote auditing can be. An NSF client experienced an issue where several of their goose down farms required their animal welfare certification. However, there had been an outbreak of avian influenza, so no auditor was allowed to enter the farm. But were they not to receive their certification, they were at risk of dropping out of the supply chain. So we sent each farm manager a pair of smart glasses, and our auditors conducted the inspections from their laptops, seeing what the manager saw and communicating in real time using audio and visual feedback. As a result, 15 out of 18 of the farms inspected were certified. So, why not a tablet? Surely this can all be done with a smartphone. So, let me talk about why we find the smart glass a better choice of hardware. As you can see, this here is the Glass Enterprise Edition 2. They're the latest smart glasses from our hardware partner Google. Smart glasses are generally simpler than they appear at first glance. The components themselves will already be familiar to you. So, there's a non-obtrusive display, which is that plastic prism thing you can see in the front there. There's a camera for live streaming and video or image capture. There's noise-cancelling microphone and speakers for two-way communication. There's a touchpad. However, the glasses are also voice-activated. There's the ability to connect to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. But one of the biggest advantages we've seen is the fact that the hands-free training platform eliminates the need to hold tablets, smartphones or books, which can harbour detrimental bacteria and viruses. The wearable device doesn't get in the way when the user is training and doesn't need to be set down on a worktop in order to switch tasks. Over time, we've built a platform that gives the auditor as much control over the remote audit as they need. The idea is that the glass wearer should have to touch as little additional material as possible and simply follow the auditor's instruction. So here is an example of what a remote viewer would see on their screen during a live stream. The remote user can take screenshots and record video of the live stream. They can zoom in and out the smart glasses camera. They can adjust the contrast and brightness of the live stream. They can upload documents for the glassware to see in real time. They can even circle particular items in the glassware's field of vision to concentrate on. Without a doubt, remote auditing sounds like the best solution, right? So why isn't everyone doing it? Why aren't all operators and auditing companies using remote assistance to conduct their audits? Well, one reason is that remote assistance relies on Wi-Fi or 4G connectivity. As networked as the world is today, a broadband connection is still not as much of a given in all areas of the globe as we'd like. Low bandwidth can affect the clarity and continuity of the live stream. There are certain areas in a location that will never have good signal strength, such as certain areas of an abattoir or refrigerated storage areas. And farms may have a strong connection in the farmhouse office, but going out into the field will often kill connectivity completely. So we need to think about day-to-day operations within a business where remote access is not an option. More on that in a minute. Also, let's not forget that there are some aspects of an audit that don't rely on video and audio alone. Sometimes an auditor may use their sense of smell, for example, to detect unfit meat or unclean areas. Animal welfare auditors may need to handle and interact with livestock. Certain aspects of auditing just cannot be performed digitally. Fortunately, even without access to Wi-Fi, there's a range of offline applications that can allow workers to interact directly with the smart glasses to receive, capture, and share critical information. For example, offline data capture. Software installed in the device guides a facility manager through the inspection process and prompts them to answer questions and gather pictures, videos, and audio along the way. Later, the glasses can be plugged into a computer and that data is then uploaded to the auditor. In more off-the-grid locales, the user can simply ship the smart glasses back to us so we can extract the data for analysis and compliance assessment. Or, once completed, they can simply be connected to Wi-Fi when in a better strength area and the data will be synchronized. We are very much in an age of digital technology. People don't leave home without their smartphones. Houses are programmed via apps. Most new cars come with satellite navigation installed, but for some in our industry, there's still the notion that smart glasses are a bit too radical. I've heard lots of objections such as, oh, that's unnerving, I'm being watched, you're recording me, or it's like Big Brother, I'm never going to have any privacy. Or even things like, it's going to learn too much about me, this is AI gone mad, the robots are going to run the world. Yet, a recent statistic stated that the average Londoner is likely to be caught on CCTV camera for more than 300 times a day. How many times a day do we appear in other people's FaceTime calls or selfies? In terms of learning about us, practically any application we use today learns to predict our habits and activities. Amazon gives you recommendations of new products based on what you've previously purchased. And Netflix displays recommendations for you with a percentage showing how confident their algorithm is that you'll enjoy the content based on your viewing history. The bottom line, technology is as useful and as intrusive as we want it to be. When it comes to commercial smart glasses, any privacy concerns can be addressed as programs are designed and implemented, and we work very closely with clients on this. Even as we talk about the benefits of remote auditing, there are other areas of the food industry that will also have to adapt to the new environment. Food businesses are opening up again, but we still need to respect strict regulations and social distances, for example. One particular area we deal with is training. The old norm involves classroom sessions, shoulder-to-shoulder training and supervised testing. Obviously, this is an issue when we're all doing our best to stay 2 meters apart. Not only that, the industry will continue to see an even higher staff turnover than usual, with every new employee needing to be trained. Industry surveys have shown for years that training isn't being done as well as it could be, and operators know this. In peer-to-peer training, details get skipped, comprehension can't be easily verified, and employees are forced to spend hours away from their stations, all of which is exacerbated by the pandemic. We're seeing that training on the Smart Glass platform allows teams to mitigate much of this. So we're looking at learning happens virtually, hands-free, at the workstation, which lessens opportunities for contamination and spread of the virus or foodborne illnesses. It's demonstrably faster than traditional methods, which is critical when we've seen back-of-house staff reduced to meet lower demand or safety requirements. There's less food waste in the training process because users have been shown to produce products correctly the first time. The method achieves higher retention and confidence than traditional training platforms, and that peace of mind is important at a time when so much of the team's business as usual has been upended. Many food businesses have existed for decades based on the status quo, on doing things the way they've always been done. But last year, Jeffrey Clark and Philip Crandall of the University of Arkansas published a study on food service training with smart glasses. To quote, they said, "The purpose of the study was to explore the educational properties of wearing computers that included efficiency, hands-free access to information, and freed up spaces in the work environment." The results? A group who learned a set of tasks through strictly video-based training needed over 50% more time to receive and execute the training compared to the group trained using Google Glass. What's more, all participants in the Smart Glass group made a sandwich in the exact way informed by the training, earning a score of 10 out of a possible 10. The strictly video-based group, however, averaged just 5.1 out of 10. Finally, the study also showed Smart Glass trainees demonstrated a significant increase in hand washing compliance, particularly in the lather step. Now, we ask a lot of our managers. They attempted to get a lot done in addition to the inevitable crises, big and small, that pop up every day, and companies are also starting to look for more comprehensive, detailed reporting data that has traditionally come from a pen and paper on a clipboard. So one outgrowth of the training work we've done is to put together a suite of software tools to make life a little simpler for managers, while building the quality, quantity and speed of the information companies need them to share. So they can conduct tasks like daily checklists and audits, hands-free, even capturing video and photos of things like inventory or equipment readiness. The smart glasses can display policies and standards direct in the manager's line of sight, allowing workers in different locations to perform checks consistently and by the book. Verification capabilities can be built into the process even when there's no internet connectivity. And the robust data analytics can be generated for custom dashboards reporting on any number of tasks. Needless to say, companies spend a lot of money on equipment, and much is riding on those machines: food prep, sanitation, cooking. When a key piece of equipment goes down, so does a product line, or worst case, the ability for a location to stay open. Then a local team member has to learn and follow the unfamiliar path of figuring out who to call, how to set a maintenance appointment, and whether to raise a flag with the corporate office. Meanwhile, minutes, hours, days tick by and profits nosedive. Here's a less dramatic alternative. A worker puts on the smart glasses, selects the cues to connect with an off-site specialist in real time, using the glasses to show and explain the issue to the specialist, and then receive immediate instruction along with visual aids at the equipment on how to resolve the problem. What used to take days can now be dispensed within a matter of minutes through remote assistance. We've been collaborating with suppliers like Henny Penny and Taylor to customise support for their equipment, and are able to partner with other suppliers as the needs arise. So that's a quick overview of Smart Glass' role in the areas of auditing, remote assistance, training and management operations. Thank you so much for listening. I will now hand over to Natasha, who will guide us through the Q&A session.
Thank you, Claire and Suzanne, for such interesting presentations and topical aspects about auditing. So we're going to move on to the Q&A session now, and we've already got quite a number of questions, so I'd like to just kick off with those if I may. The first one's for you, Claire. So it was mentioned that to deliver a remote audit, a site needs to have really good mobile or Wi-Fi connectivity. What's been your experience with this, and do sites have to invest in such technology now?
As mentioned, we trialled and we're using the software in many countries across the globe. And we've generally found that most sites do have good connectivity. We're often able to adjust the bandwidth and settings to maximise the performance of the software that we chose and easily move from Wi-Fi to mobile connections as the situation allows. Of course, if the signal strength is just too poor, as both Suzanne and I have said, for example, in some heavily insulated cold rooms, then sometimes we're just not able to proceed. But we do not require our suppliers to invest in Wi-Fi just for auditing purposes. However, we are seeing sites invest in Wi-Fi boosters for their own operational and manufacturing purposes. And of course, then we can also benefit from that at Audit too.
That's good to know. Thanks for your experience there. It's been really helpful. So Suzanne, if someone's not particularly techie, how is it to use the glasses? Does it require a lot of training?
No, they're very, very easy to use. I say the only complicated bit is the actual setup of the glasses, and that's what we as a company do, and then we send them to you already. They're very easy. It's basically turning them on and then going through the menu options. We used to book almost 1 hour remote sessions with customers to train them, and we found that was reducing so much to sort of 10-15 minutes. And now most of our customers are just can get through it with just the instructions, and anybody that's not tech savvy, they're the ones I immediately target to try the glasses first, because they surprise themselves with how easy they are to use.
That sounds good. So Claire, how effective has remote auditing been from your side compared to an audit where you've normally been physically present? Does it really work?
So at Tesco, we use a BRAG scoring system. So red for our poorest performers, blue awarded as a grade for our outstanding performers. And in our physical presence audit programme, our results show a span of grades across the spectrum, with green being the most common grade awarded, red the least common. And we're seeing the same pattern of grades in the remote audit programme too. And I showed a photo earlier that was taken with a zoom function where an issue was spotted across the room. Also, the screen view on your laptop can be greater than the natural field of vision by the human eyes. So even larger monitor or a large TV screen can really bring the factory into your home if you're auditing from home. We've also been using things like selfie sticks, so we can take the camera to places where a person may not be able to go, so inside or around pieces of equipment. So from our perspective, we've been very satisfied from our months of use that we can get a realistic audit result from a remote visit or audit.
Okay, so would you think there's particular areas where you really need to be there in person, you need to see with your own eyes? For example, if it was really dark or hard to reach areas?
In terms of the software, as I mentioned earlier, the technology can access the torch on the camera, so you are able to turn the torch on and obviously illuminate the area that you're looking at. And also, as mentioned, the remote program isn't a complete replacement for a physical presence. You still want to have a blend of both. But of course, when you're unable to go to locations, it is the option that we have at the moment.
So the blended approach is a really good point. Somebody did say after the pandemic, will this become the norm, the usual mode of operation?
I think we will see the industry keep both physical presence and remote here to stay. We've, if you like, stretched the elastic, and when the elastic is we let go of the elastic, it's not going to rebound to its original shape. A blended approach of both is the way forward, I believe.
It sounds like that would be well received as well. So a question for you, Suzanne. How often would smart glasses need to be validated? And the burning question, of course, would be setup cost, timescale, just roughly, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, the cost one's always is a tricky subject, and of course with anything it's going to depend completely on what package you're going for and to the span of how far you want to take the technology. But we do basically forward on the cost of the glasses. The Google glasses can range from about 1,000 to 1,200. And then there's a software subscription per month, which at the moment is at about £90 per month. But again, it will range, and we have a very extensive talk with our clients as to if this is actually going to give them a return of investment. And as Claire's clearly demonstrated, there are so many areas where your smartphone will be reliant, and so we're not going to try and force any hardware on you that we think is just going to be too costly for you. But again, if we're looking at that hands-free facility, especially when you're preparing and cooking food, then we definitely do see the smart glasses beneficial.
So definitely worth considering. So there's a question here that's come in that I'd like to ask you, Claire, about smartphone usage. And this is coming from an auditor who works with small business particularly. And they're asking how we'd address viewing paper documents and issues around business owners often being very busy in the smaller operations.
So 2 questions there. The first one with regards to documentation. The software allows for a document snip function. So a little bit like taking a photograph of the document that we can then zoom in on and take a good look at the documentation. And we've been very satisfied that actually, whether it's a paperwork system or an online system, we're able to use the technology to look at both sets of documentation. So that's not been an area of concern for us. In terms of time, obviously, time is saved in terms of auditor time travelling to a location. But obviously, if we were doing a physical presence audit, we would be there all day. Whereas with the remote technology, we can stop and start. So we could do a couple of hours in the morning, a couple of hours break to allow the business operators to go and do whatever they might need to do, and then continue later on in the day. So the remote technology does allow you to break the traditional mold of a fixed 1 or 2 day audit, for example. It allows for flexibility for the auditors to work with the site to support their day-to-day priorities, as well as achieving the audit that we'd like to achieve.
So that's good that you can take views of the documents and so on. So somebody's asked whether it's okay for the auditor to keep the records.
So that's done on a permission by permission basis. No photographs or recordings or anything are taken without permission. And as shown in the video, any photographs or recordings that are taken actually appear for the observer on site to also see, so they can see exactly what is seen by the auditor. And then it's mutually agreed whether a record can be retained. If it is retained, it's then saved on the workspace as shown in the schematic, which is a secure cloud-based system where any records may be retained, but nothing is taken without the permission of the site.
Great, okay, thank you. So Suzanne, question about who would actually provide the smart glasses, or who's responsible for those? Would it be the third-party auditor or the facility themselves?
It would definitely be, it depends on the scenario as well. So yes, if it's the third party auditor, then it would be up to them to provide it. It would be a case of they would provide the smart glass audit system. If it's a case of a business using it within their own operations, then it's up to them to purchase the glasses. But for example, NSF themselves, we use the glasses for some audits. So it's up to NSF to provide those glasses and to make sure that they get to the site safely and are returned.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. So, Claire, a question about confidentiality. From a retail perspective, has there been any resistance from companies who may be producing for other retailers? And I'd like to tag on another couple of points about there. Have you worked with organisations that will have a no phone policy or no photographs from the auditors?
So simply put, yes, lots of concerns from people to start off with. People who generally were just nervous about the intrusive potential of bringing technology into their facility. And once we explained how the technology worked and what we would and wouldn't be viewing, what we wouldn't be capturing, and that everything was transparent and that we were very open and honest with what we were doing, a lot of those concerns alleviated. So yes, the concerns were there, but a lot of investment has also been made in the software to ensure that it's been properly checked and tested by the experts in these topics to make sure that it's secure. A feature development with the software is also pixelation. So whilst in the video I showed you could see people, coming soon, if you like, is pixelation, so that will also blur out any individuals. But you've got three options. You can live stream, you can record, and you can take photographs. Obviously, live streaming is what we're doing going around a factory. But if a site has a no phone policy in terms of no photographs and recordings, then obviously none would be taken, and it's all done in a very transparent way, so you could see that nothing is actually being captured. If by no phone policy you mean as in no phone into the factory at all, well then obviously it's very difficult to perform a remote audit, and we would revert to a physical audit instead.
Okay, that's clear. And somebody's asked whether if you were to do a remote audit, would you follow up with the physical anyway, verification?
Well, as mentioned, we do see the future of both a remote and a physical approach, that blended term that we used earlier. Obviously, at the moment, if there is a no visitor policy at a site, it's very difficult for us to do any form of physical follow-up, but the use of both in future, yes.
Thanks. So, Suzanne, I think you had mentioned that it can look a little bit James Bond, a little bit sci-fi sometimes. The staff may think that they're being spied on. Would it be possible to start getting more acceptance and familiarity for this staff, as people have done with CCTV, and whether CCTV that's generally in a lot of factories could be used as proof as well?
Yeah, and again, it goes to back what Claire says, is about transparency. It's about making sure that wherever these glasses are going to be used, or wherever remote auditing is going to be used, you need to have a really good communication with the site. And so I have dealt with sites that are very nervous about this technology, and I've been more than happy to send them a pair of glasses for them to use within, and just to get comfortable with them, to show them it's not that scary. And yes, we can see what you're doing, but it's no different from if an auditor was there on site. It's just that the glasses become the auditor's eyes. So it's about getting them comfortable and letting them have a bit of fun with it. So I've never been averse to doing that. And again, if there's to be no recording, we make that agreement with the site beforehand, and we don't go beyond anything that they are uncomfortable with. And I think it's something that slowly people are going to get used to. It is scary, and using a smartphone or glasses, you see it's in your face, as opposed to, I think we're kind of forgetting that CCTV cameras are there. So I think in time it will change, but we're always very open to speaking to anybody, and even if our clients are struggling to deal with a supplier, we're more than happy to talk to them and help them communicate that this is something that, you know, as scary as it is, let's get you comfortable with. We'll give you as much information as possible to ensure that you are comfortable with them being used on your site.
Thanks. So Claire, obviously these type of interactions are going to require a lot of planning and so forth. How would you actually manage the unannounced audit approach?
So we're operating a complete announced program with regards to remote for a couple of reasons. One is to make sure we can do a signal test before the audit takes place, to make sure we can get the right level of connectivity. Otherwise, it's going to be wasting people's time on the day if we turn up and the connectivity just isn't there. But also, if there are any document sharing to be made, then we give enough notice and we're able to then share documents in advance. So I think it'd be very difficult, to be honest, to do this in an unannounced fashion. It's possible, but you do then risk the connectivity challenge that we've just mentioned.
Thanks. So these are a couple of questions for you, Suzanne, very hands-on, very practical, but I think that's a really good opportunity for people to ask those when they're learning about the opportunity. So one was, how would you handle or deal with very loud noise, which is common in a lot of production areas, and also the battery life of the kit itself?
Yeah, so in terms of sound, that can be an issue now that there is the two-way communication. However, we have found with the EE2s, which is the ones that I demonstrated, sometimes there is a struggle with hearing very clearly. There is the option to attach Bluetooth headphones to assist with sound, but we're not always tied to the Google glasses. We can use other hardware, which we have been using. We've experimented with a few, and some of them do have the better better sound when you come to a noisy environment. There's also the function that if the auditor cannot hear what's happening on site, they can type a message which appears onto the person's glasses. So, but then this wouldn't quite work if the audio issue was vice versa. In terms of battery, again, can be a bit of an issue. The Google glasses, the battery life for live streaming is about an hour to an hour and a half. When we're looking at the training and the back of house operations, then you can look at pretty much all day. But you can add external batteries to the glasses. And also, again, if we're looking at a site that we're looking into long audits, looking at 5 to 8 hours, then again, we'd explore maybe a different hardware, a different smart glass that has maybe a better battery life or interchangeable batteries.
Sounds sensible. So Claire, another twofold question, because they're flooding in. So it's great if we can try and combine them as well, because I'm conscious of the times, if you don't mind me to combine two here. So the first is, have you used this method for new suppliers? And also, how do you cover the food safety culture aspects?
So yes, we have used for new suppliers, and in fact, in the peak of the pandemic, when supplies were in particular demand, we were able to approve new suppliers into Tesco using the technology. So that was great because it meant we were doing the right thing for our customers. In terms of the audit standard, we audit against the Tesco manufacturing standard, and the topic of culture is covered throughout the content of the standard. We don't, unlike, for example, BRC, we don't have a specific food safety culture module, but we are able to interact with the people working on the shop floor. And in some circumstances, and just going back to the previous question also about noise, we've used multiple headphones using headphone splitters actually attached into the phone, so that the headphones can be used and worn by multiple wearers and allowing for a multiple conversation. The software also isn't just one-to-one. You can have multiple people on the call at any one time. So you are able to get into quite a group discussion and not just talk to the person who's showing you around the site.
Okay, thank you. So just a point that someone's raised, obviously there are going to be other methods and tools available, not just the ones we've presented today, but these are just the ones we're going to highlight and focus on specifically. Another practical question for you, Suzanne. So this is, how does it operate in humid environments? Because we've got a lot of people from across the globe who've joined us today, and also about shipping the kit overseas, any issues there?
Yeah, so in terms of environments, so far, again, we've had no problems. I've taken them into abattoirs, I've taken them into kitchens, and they are very resilient to heat and to humidity. We've had no issues with that. In terms of posting, the glasses are, when we use the Google glasses, they're very small and they come in a case. And I found that as long as they're bubble wraps, they can be shipped absolutely fine, no problems. I think I've only had one case where there's been an issue that there was a fault in it, but we are sending these all over the country, and just being precautious and making sure you're wrapping it, then it's absolutely fine. Postage can be an issue. Sometimes the glasses can get caught in customs, so it's about just having that conversation with the duty and tax people, and I have sort of a generic letter that we can send along with that, just to discuss what they are and what they do. But in general, it's very straightforward and very easy to pack.
And can you wear them over prescription glasses?
Yeah, I've seen the questions come up a lot about, can you wear them over spectacles? So you can, it can be a bit fiddly, I'm not going to lie, it can be a bit fiddly if you want to wear them over your glasses. If you have particularly, you know, my glasses aren't too big, but you can wear them over them. It may not be as comfortable, but the way the glasses work, you can remove the frames and you can add on different frames as well. I think somebody was mentioning about safety glasses as well. So there is a safety glass frame that you can add to it. So it's more covering your eyes as well. And if we're finding that, and there is the option as well that you can have a prescription lens put on the glasses, but if you're sharing the glasses around, that might not be so practical. But again, we would speak to you and speak to the clients, and if we find that the majority of your team are glasses wearers, then we'd potentially look at a different model of glasses to use, of smart glasses to use, that don't have that frame in front. They're more fixed towards your head, so then you can wear your glasses freely.
Sounds good. So Claire, the last couple of points, I think, really, does the audit take longer this way, and how do you cover the traceability exercise?
So in terms of time, when we first started trialling the technology, as the auditors were learning, it did take a little longer initially because everybody was getting comfortable with the technology. Our auditors are now well conversed in use of the technology and the methods by which to deploy it. So they've managed to get much more efficient and speed things up. In terms of the duration of the audit, it still doesn't take any longer than what we would do from a physical point of view in terms of numbers of hours. It just might be useful for the site to split, as I say, over more than one day. But generally speaking, no different to a physical audit. It really is a replica. And then in terms of, did you say traceability, the second part?
It's traceability, whether that could be covered. Yeah, we've already mentioned documentation, so I guess that would be.
Yes, absolutely. So it's absolutely done in the same way as when we would do a physical audit. And in fact, one of our auditors actually, whilst auditing, as I say, during lockdown, actually had a very large television screen that they plugged their laptop into, and were able in a very large screen to have all the documentation of a traceability actually in front of them on the screen. No different than if it was all laid out on a table in front of them. So we're absolutely able to replicate everything we've done in a physical audit remotely, apart from, as we've both mentioned, that sensory experience of being on site. So in terms of documentation and visuals, absolutely replicated.
It's good that you can learn from those experiences and pass them on to other organisations that may be a little bit more reticent to use this technology. So I'm conscious of the time, as I mentioned. So if either of you had seen a particular question you'd like to cover at this stage, otherwise I will catch up on a couple more.
There was a question somebody had mentioned about concerns for downloading software. In terms of the technology that we've been using, the only requirement is to download the app onto the phone, the smartphone that's actually going around the factory. So we're not requiring any technology to be downloaded onto, say, laptops or computers within the site. It is just the app. And once the audit is over, you can then delete the app. So the software is actually on the side of the auditor. And in terms of purchasing the software, it's Tesco that has made that purchase. So it's not part of the cost of the audit, and it's not a piece of software that the site is required to download.
Thank you. Anything from your side, Suzanne?
No, I've had a quick little look through, and I think we've covered the majority of them. Unless there's any I've missed, if you can see, Natasha.
Well, there was one about whether enforcement visits could be covered in this way.
I think, again, it's completely up to the person that wants to conduct the audit and what they're most comfortable using. And again, it's just that there are times that you just can't, the glasses can't replace, but it's the option of, do we do it this way or do we not do it at all? And so whatever visit, whatever capability, it's weighing up the pros and the cons, and if you feel that this is a way that they can be used, then absolutely. But if it's absolutely no, you can't use the glasses, then you just have to debate, well, what happens, and does the audit not happen at all, or do we have to amend the situation slightly?
Definitely great to have that as an opportunity. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you both so much for all the work you've spent putting this together and answering the live questions today. Thank you to everybody who's joined from across the globe and for attending. I do apologise if we didn't manage to answer all your particular questions this time. I would like to remind you all about the other IFST activities, particularly the COVID-19 Knowledge Hub, which we've been working hard to share signposting, useful documents, and that's been really well received. We've also got our online food science and technology magazine that covers all the up-to-date topics. We welcome new members, so do please check our membership benefits page on our IFST website, details on the screen there. And I thank you again to Claire and Suzanne and everybody for attending our IFST webinar today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.